Welcome back to another devlog. This is number 28. Um, so, what we have here is on Monday, I was working on getting Destructible cover working when you shoot it. I was able to get the shot imprint decal to work when you shoot something. It will show a mark, um, with a little imprint on the wall. I was working with Rayfire again, like I did with the enemy, and I was running into performance issues, so I had to use a different component called the Rayfire gun component, which pretty much interacts with the Rayfire rigid component. It just does like a ray cast, but I had to tie it into my shooter weapon in order to, when there was an impact to the shooter weapon, like collision on the wall, then it would send off a Rayfire collision with the Rayfire gun in order to start interacting with the Rayfire rigid component, start breaking the wall apart. So I was able to get it to break, but there was, after a lot of testing and tweaking, I was able to get the performance working again, like I did with the enemy. It was pretty much all about prefactoring the object, not at runtime. So setting up a different prefactored prefab, and then when it goes beyond a certain damage threshold, then it swaps out that prefab and begins its fracturing. So it was all, yeah. Also, the key was pretty much to set the fracture size high enough to where it would break into its prefactured amounts, but not any sub fractures. So if it's small enough, it'll keep breaking into smaller pieces, and you get a large amount of pieces where it had to calculate rigid body, physics for each one of them, and that really slows things down. So if you have like 10 to 30 um, calculations going at the same time, the frame rate doesn't dip. So, and it gets the point across. So, and this also has a nice little uh, you know uh, particle physics or particle systems when you shoot it. So I'll go ahead and demo that now. So I made this destructible cover here, and you can see when you shoot it, you're getting these little imprints now, right? These little decals that kind of, I got that working from the VFX package, and leaves little holes, and they kind of fade out the glow, and then they kind of go away after a while. So after a certain amount of damage, it it now starts to break apart with debris and dust. Oh, here comes my enemy. Oh, well, you get the point. Um, so that's pretty much the destruction. Um, I'll talk about this scene later that I've set up here, and we'll discuss what's going on here, especially with the enemies. Let me just set him back to patrol override, and I'll hide this destructible cover here. Okay. So on Tuesday, I cleaned everything up and committed the new functionality to start the day. So that was really the last real development task I had on my list as far as doing development and engineering work. And it was pretty much time to finally start um, turning to making levels. Actually constructing the levels of the game. And so I went back to my other tools I was using at the very beginning of the project, to construct levels. And one of them is Dungeon Architect. It's pretty much a way to use these tools to actually, instead of building, and designing levels piece by piece by hand, in different ways, you could actually quickly just randomly generate a layout. I don't know if I'd actually use it inside the game, but I learned how to use this tool and get it working. And you can pretty much set up a level randomly that looks right. It would probably be good for prototyping and testing, like the length of your level, and And this grid snap flow tool pretty much generates something that it's not just a single plane, but you can actually have multiple levels. So it has some use, this tool, in prototyping work. Um, I also have other tools like GSpawn, but that's more for like once you have the level, now you're gonna put the final paint and polish on it. And GSpawn is a good tool for finishing the levels, but that's probably for a later stage. We're mainly focused on just building, prototype boxes for the level in order to test our gameplay functionality, and that's really the stage we're at right now. It's like in the beginning, I had an initial game design that I wanted to go for in order to start building functionality. Um, and it's almost like an iterative process where it's like you do some game design and you build some stuff, and then you have some stuff to test with, and you put together a prototype and you test that, and that kind of reveals that you need to either change some stuff or build new stuff in order to. And you have this iteration, this back and forth with the game designer and the developer, to where you're refining the actual functionality into something, a prototype that's actually, when you test and play, you're actually you're finding the fun, right? And that's what you have to do in order to, once you find the fun, you nail in your core gameplay mechanics, then you can proceed to constructing the levels and and then putting the production paint and polish on it. Um, so I got Dungeon Architect working. Um, So basically, at this point in the project, I kind of had to transition back to the other skill of game designer. So this week, no longer doing game development work, but back to the design work. So this really, like in my first videos, this really involves a bunch of thinking about how the levels should work, particularly like, you know, in evolving around the design of typical stealth games, right? And I did this in the beginning, so I spent more time kind of going over videos, kind of discussing, stealth game design and kind of, what I've seen before. And I pretty much got to work as constructing a single room. So you don't really need levels at this point, but you just need, right? You don't need to construct a whole level of multiple rooms. What you need to do is construct a single room, and then I think the plan is to construct a single room and then use this tool, this snap grid flow, is order to tie all those rooms together in order to make a level. But right now we had to do like a single room prototype of just the basic gameplay core concept. Um, so pretty much on Wednesday I came up with this. I just used Pro Builder and stuck a bunch of kind of wall obstacles throughout the level, and then I just randomly dropped in a couple, three of these AI robots, and I gave them all waypoints to kind of patrol here and there too, just to see what's going on, and just a rough testing of this. I kind of realized how terrible the gameplay is at the front. But the difference is so not to be dismayed. The difference is before I had this vision in my head about a stealth game or whatever, right? But I didn't have any player I could move around. I didn't have any enemies that I could patrol around. I didn't have any environment or obstacles that I could really set up a scene like this. Now I do have such things, and testing them and running them, you know, this is like the next step of the iteration. It's like, okay, it is crap, but what it's done for me is actually it's pointed out things that could be fixed or improved on. Say, one of the things was, when you play this, it's too easy to get around. It's too easy to get around these patrollers. You can literally, if you know what you're doing, you can just cruise. So in my testing, I set up this little area over here to say if there's a key here, you have to get from this point A to point B to get the key and then point C to unlock the door. And attempting that mission with these three patrolling and the way they're set up, you can literally just run past everybody and they'll never spot you. It's way too easy. So there's no challenge there. So how do you go about actually designing a level to where it's more of a challenge, right? Well, one of the things, the easy fixes, I took away his shield, I took away his health, and then I made so pretty much if they spot you and they shoot at you, it's a one-hit kill. Also, I gave the enemy AI a wider range of detection, so you can't just run past them. Okay, so here's a demo of the prototype in action. So basically, like I said, they're gonna go on their patrol routes, but I gave them a wider field of view, but the way it's set up, there's really no AIs blocking you. Yeah, he comes around here, but uh-oh. Oh, I spoke too soon. Okay, never mind. They caught me for sure. So it does sort of work in a sense, but if you really know what you're doing, like enemies on a patrol path, like you could easily, like if you play this, I mean, it is possible, but you really have to design it well where you can't just cheese the system. Like, yeah, if you go up the middle, sure, but if you know the patrol routes, you can just be like, hey, look at me. Oh, you almost spotted me, actually. So a wider field of range definitely narrows down what. See, you can just stand behind him and like, okay, oh, okay. Oh, that's actually a wider field of range and a greater field of view, definitely. So I got the key now. It's like, especially if you play this a couple times, like you know exactly the best way to go. Okay, so I can't go here, but I'll just simply wait for him to go over there. Okay, that guy's doing over here. Okay, so I made the key door and I unlocked this. So basically, when you unlock this or something, now they're all going to come after you, and then you're going to have a combat sequence. Ugh. And you're going to have a shield. You're not going to get hit in one turn. So it's kind of this transition, like this Pac-Man. You're going through a maze, the tight corners, they're blocking off. You wait for them to go by or whatever they're going to do. You get the power up, and then you can eliminate the enemies for the final key to get through pass through the room. That's kind of the gameplay concept I'm going for. So that's a little demo of the prototype. It's, it works in a sense, but it really needs tightening up, a lot of polish, a lot of fine tuning to really nail down, especially how the obstacles are structured within the game and the patrol paths, so they're actually blocking. So there's no route you can just easily circumvent them. You kind of have to play in a creative way not to get spotted. There is a way through it, so it's almost like a puzzle. Each room's a puzzle that you kind of have to figure out how to get through. Once you know the solution, it kind of defeats the purpose of replayability, but I think throwing in a hunter AI might just change that fact. So all these little tweaks, the easy tweaks that really reiterate your game design, but also in testing, there's a lot of other issues where sometimes the AIs they'll kind of collide with each other on the path, a nav mesh path. They won't be able to get around each other. All these dynamic situations of chasing, it's a little bit too easy. I have to tweak it where it's like they'll continue to run after you after they lose sight of you in their vision cone range for a while, and not just stop in their tracks and look around. It's too easy to get away. So a lot of gameplay testing with a simple prototype. It gives them something to work with. So it's basically the concept is a sandbox. You're prototyping the sandbox, and now you have some toys to play with the sandbox. So yeah, so I have this. So I'm strong in engineering skill, but not so much in game design. It's a whole different skill set. It's a lot of, planning and thinking and researching and testing. So it feels like since I'm not coding and committing new functionality, it feels like I'm not getting work done. But really, in actuality, I am. I'm putting a lot of thought into the design of the game, so it's just as important. My old job, they would call this the UX role, the user experience, right? So they would tell me, the engineer, how the app should look and feel and behave and be laid out and all that, you know. So it's a lot simpler with mobile app development, but it's still an important role. It's something that I kind of took for granted because it's not really my responsibility to worry about. I just take instructions and implement the functionality and code to their specification, you know. And every once in a while, they would come up with something they wanted to do, but I'd have to inform them of the limitations of the system and what could be done. So there was just kind of this back and forth at times of, you know, what I could do. So now being in the game designer's shoes, I kind of have to strike a balance, what I would like to have, like, and what it's possible to have with the resources available. I was watching this interesting video. It's like, as a new designer, I have the perspective of like a game player. All my life I'm playing games, and it's like playing all these stealth games. Like, I want to build a really good stealth game, you know. But in reality, you could do that if you had a team of developers, right? But it's only one developer, you know. Um, and and it really comes down to, it's like, um, you know, what I think is good, you know, is only possible. So like a catch-22, where I think, you know, in order to have a good game, I need to develop a lot of stuff, but at the same time, I don't have the resources for such. So as a game designer, you really have to constrain yourself down, your designs down to your resources available, especially for game development. So during the week, between my thoughts, the real life was interrupting with interview requests, that I had to divert my attention and thought towards. Also, real life, the actual, when you're running a company or a startup, there's also something called the accountant of the business. So it's just like, basically, the accountant of the business stopped by and notified the project manager that the startup only had about 5 months left to runway until it became financially insolvent, and the project would have to be put on hold until new funds could be acquired. But until then, the decision has been made to keep working until the end of that time. So that's pretty much what we're facing, like in real life, right? I keep going with this, but not forever. You know, eventually I'm gonna have to seek alternative methods of funding, and this project will have to be put on hold, or, you know, worked on part time until such things, and that's just reality. So, you know, I've gone as far as I can go, but, you know, financial reality. You know, if I do get a real job, then of course this project put on hold. But until then, we keep moving forward. So Thursday, I was just doing some more gameplay testing, to reveal, you know, more issues and limitations and functionality, identifying areas that functionality would have to address, and I have to do it in an efficient way, so it's not, um, he's not, you know, going and changing a bunch of stuff just so I can prototype stuff. So I really have to pick and choose, if I want to fix this or that. So through that time, I was playing with the idea of adding a hunter AI. Pretty much, you have these AIs, and they're okay. You know, they can detect you, they can chase after you, and they can go back to their patrol. That's fine, but they have to spot you, and that's, you know, I'd like to throw in a different AI who would actually come out and like kind of know where you are, and kind of kind of go to your general direction and try to find you with more aggressive AI. You know, I think that dynamic would really set my game apart. But it was interesting. I was looking into technology, the behavior trees, like doing a behavior tree to kind of control this AI. But I think it would, that would be the thing that would set my game apart. But it would also require some technical wizardry, and, you know, could it be done? Can it be done correctly? So Friday, a lot more thinking about the design and research, how to constrain my design ideas to the resources available, testing the prototype. Um, so game design is a bit of more of a different and slower, methodical process than a developer role, because the developer is just implementing instructions. So with game design, it's a lot of thinking, and you use a lot of different tools, and you're a lot, you know, you're just kind of, you're just kind of cooking up ideas. You're not really building anything, but you're kind of imagining the structure and how the game will play, and then also testing with the prototype. Um, so 6 months ago, I had the concept of nothing, but now I have something to prototype. But um, in my initial test, it shows that right now, as things are, there's a lot to be done in order to tighten up the gameplay, in order to like really boil it down and find the fun. So, is it at all possible? We'll continue with that work next week, but that's pretty much what I got done this week. All right, thanks for joining, and we will talk to you next time.